going to have an interesting time today. Um, but then we're going to start by 5:05. That's 5 minutes past the hour of 5. I'm going to introduce our facilitator for today and then we start. But then I really want to appreciate this class. We had an awesome time yesterday. This class is on fire. You guys are doing really amazing well. The conversations yesterday was mind-blowing, the contributions and the interactions. And I encourage you guys to keep it up. I was so inspired yesterday to be here again today. My name is Godson Kelly. Like you already know, I'm an associate of the Lecturer College and also a member. I'm going to also be moderating the class today. Today, we're going to be talking about governance and corruption. One topic that debates whenever we talk about it. And I'm just looking forward to saw yesterday. I know today is going to be another bombshell, and I hope to learn a lot as well. Continue to drop your names in the chat, reach out to your friends, your partners, inform them that we are live, right? I don't know if I should do this. I just want to call one person while we are waiting for um 5 minutes past the hour of 5. In 1 minute, just tell me what was their take home from yesterday's class. There was a lot to discuss yesterday. The conversation shifted towards the end of the class.
Okay. Okay, anyway, while we wait for 5 minutes after 5, please get your team members, your party members, all chairpersons. Please make sure all your team members are in class. Thank you.
Wumi, I'd like to cross-check. Has the facilitator been spoken to?
Yes, please. He's about to join.
All right, I'm so sorry about that. My network threw me out, but I'm back now. And while we are waiting for the facilitator, I just want one person, like I was saying before. What did you learn yesterday? What was your take home? In 1 minute, can you share with us a kind of recap for yesterday? Or you can drop it in the chat, like what you learned yesterday. Facilitator will be joining us very shortly. But while we wait for him to join us, I still want one person to go or two persons while we're waiting. He's not here yet. He's going to be here shortly. What was your take home yesterday? What did you learn yesterday? And what are you looking forward to today? I want some hands up. Adeni, you didn't learn anything yesterday. You were all over the place.
I think you can just go ahead with the profile. The facilitator is around. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so our facilitator for today is Omar. He advises in the area of data science, criminal justice system, financial crimes, and geoeconomies. At the national level, he has been a member of the National Risk Assessment Secretariat on Money Laundering and Terrorism Financing, and also one of 8 members that developed the National Anti-Corruption Strategy to be implemented by the Office of the Attorney General 2017 to 2021. He has been involved in policy making related to legal and institutional framework of anti-money laundering in Nigeria by serving on the Presidential Committee on Financial Action Task Force. He also addressed the FATF strategic defenses, which got Nigeria delisted as a country of high risks by FATF in 2013. His core areas of policy formulation around corporate governance, criminal justice, anti-money laundering, combating the financing of terrorism, anti-corruption, center fraud, and national security. He has obtained universities area, Nasarawa State University, University of Chester, University of Leicester, and the University of Portsmouth in the UK, the University of Leiden in Netherlands, and STG Academy and Harvard Business School, on a PhD program on defense and security at the Nigerian Defense Academy. He is a member of the Nigerian Economic Society, NES, Nigerian Institute of Certified Anti-Money Laundering Specialists, ACAMS, Association of Certified Fraud Center for Counter Fraud Studies, CCFS, United Kingdom. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Counter Fraud Center of a civil society organization, the Center for Fiscal Transparency and Integrity Watch. It's a pleasure to have you today, Mr. Omar.
Okay, Mr. Batson, first of all, let me apologize for joining late. You know, it's a weekend and my laptop is slower than my desktop at the office, so I don't know whether you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, loud and clear, that's good. So it means my internet is... do you, Lisa, you display the slides? If you send them to me. You have the model, she sent them to me, but it's going to take 1 or 2 minutes.
Yes, please. The slides will be up soon.
Okay, fine.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Apologies for joining late.
Can you see the slides, sir?
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. How's my connection?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. Okay, that's good. So can I begin?
Yes, you can go ahead, sir.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My apologies for joining in 10 minutes late. It's not my nature. For today's class, which is about 30 minutes, if I'm correct, I'm supposed to take on governance and corruption. And we're going to start by defining what governance is. Then we'll look at the dimensions of what good governance. The slides are too small. I think let me control it from my side. If you don't mind. Just give me a minute. Let me do this. Lisa, they are too small. Can you do something?
Okay, do you want to share it?
You know, the problem to share now, I have to download the WhatsApp here. Okay, you know what? Can you send it to? Okay, I've already sent it.
Yes, I sent it to you earlier.
But you know, I have to now download on my WhatsApp, on the laptop. I've not used this laptop for a while. You know, it's going to take like 2 minutes. I'm already 10 minutes late. Okay, let me proceed. Don't worry. Let me just walk with you. I can see.
Okay, Charlie, can you just reshare? Maybe you just bring it closer. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, she's using a phone. That's why. Fine, I can see. I know the content. I was just concerned about the class, but no problem. So
let me see if I can share from my own screen. Let me try.
It's just for the class. I have no problem.
Can you see my screen now, sir?
Yeah, clearly. Good.
Is this better now?
Yeah, I think so. It's better, much better. Okay, so next slide, please.
Can you play it, Godson, so it completely fills the screen?
Play it.
Yes. Is there with?
Just click slideshow. Click slideshow on top. Slideshow. No, top there, top in the middle. After transition animation slideshow.
Transition.
On top there.
The first.
See there now, slideshow. No, it's not there.
Here.
On top.
Insert.
No.
There's animation, there's slideshow.
Yeah.
Still keep going. Keep scrolling to the right. Keep going to the right. No, right. Move your cursor. No, that's too extreme. See, it's slideshow. Just
man,
it's
I
one
can't
of the
see.
options. After animations, those file, home, insert, and all. Just
I can't even see anything here.
The next.
Okay, I think this is covering it. That's
covering it. We can see it from here.
my own is covering it.
Maybe use just glasses.
Maybe we just you know where this content is, right? Just go up. This blue on the slide. Just go directly up. with your arrow. Keep going up. Have you seen slide?
You see that there is something covering the screen here.
No. Come to this blue box. Come to this blue box.
Okay, Lisa, can you make me an admin? I think I've downloaded this one.
Okay, that's fine. Try to share screen.
Yeah, so that is, make me an admin. Let me share that. Yeah, thank you. So stop sharing, Ada. Oh, the system is slow. Okay, can you see now?
Yes, you can see.
Okay. Okay, so apologies again. My name is Omar Yakubu from the Center for Fiscal Transparency and Integrity Watch. And for today, we are supposed to go on governance and corruption. Apologies for all these hitches. It's a weekend, weekend classes are usually like this. So we're going to take what is governance, then we'll look at the dimensions of good governance, then we'll look at what is corruption, and we'll look at the dimensions and the impact of corruption on governance. Then we'll look at what Nigeria has done so far, to combat corruption so that we improve governance, and we go to our conclusion. So, first of all, just by way of introduction, we'll just say everywhere, not only in Nigeria, is that governance is a consensus about all our problems. I like to say this, all our problems are well documented, and we all have all the solutions to all our problems. But most of the time we talk about mismanagement of public funds, either by lack of accountability, and transparency is the major hurdle for us to achieve our potentials, to maximize our economic development and our potentials because of this problem we call corruption. And there's evidence to show that it has affected most segments of the society, the executive, the legislature, the judiciary, the civil society, the religious bodies, the educational sector, the health sector, virtually everywhere. And once you have corruption in these areas, it's actually very difficult to make progress as a country. So, first of all, we have to look at when we talk about governance. Sometimes when we're watching TV, everything we see in the US, we'll be impressed. We'll go to the UK, we see things we're impressed. When you travel abroad, you are impressed with all the things you see. You'll be wondering why things work there. I might wonder why sometimes things do not work in your own country. So what we're going to do now in the next 2-3 minutes, just to look at what are those things that ensure that those things work in the countries that are working. Nigeria is working as well, but we have our own issues, a lot of issues. So governance comprises of the mechanisms, processes, and institutions through which citizens and groups articulate their interests, exercise their legal rights, meet their obligations, and mediate their differences. Now, there are several definitions of what governance is. So I decided to use the UNDP definition because I feel it suits Nigeria as well as so many countries. Now, you have to have first the structures. You have the structures, you have the laws. Now, the laws is basically our constitution and other laws we have decided to have. The Finance Act, the Fiscal Responsibility Act, all the laws you can think of. Now, what are the structures to implement these laws? We have the executive side, we have the legislature, we have the judiciary, all to use these laws for the benefit of everybody, of our national interest and our common interest. And here I'm assuming our national interest, our common interest is for everybody to have good roads, access to good healthcare, good education, most importantly, to have security, to be able to afford things, just to have a good life while we're here. So that's just the ultimate goal of having a government. So we have these structures in place, backed up by these laws, and we put people, we elect people to ensure that they do these things for us. So that's basically what good governance should entail. But every country like Nigeria could be complex because there are different views about what somebody even wants as a national. Somebody might tell you he doesn't even want good roads, he wants education. Somebody might say, no, I want healthcare. So the leaders have to know how to articulate all these interests and maximize to see what they can do to ensure that the majority get the most benefit. So here we look at what are the dimensions of good governance? Now, as I'm explaining this short graph, always be thinking of within the Nigerian context, wherever you are, because I believe in this class, there are people that are not living in Nigeria. So the 4 components, and there are several other models, but I'm using this model because I feel it will suit Nigeria. So the first thing we need to do or need to have is to have political accountability. Now, this element comprises of basically among so many things, but 3 things. Now, to have political accountability means you must have credible elections. Now, credible elections does not necessarily mean perfect elections, but at least it must get to the level where it is acceptable to the majority because it has been shown to be transparent, it has been credible, and people's choices are reflected in the outcome. Let the people you vote for be the ones that are announced, or let the process be that there's even no way you can manipulate the elections to the degree where it will change the outcomes of who should won or who ought to have won, and where you change the results. That is very, very fundamental. And once you don't get this aspect of credible elections, almost everything I'm going to explain will crumble, because that's the starting point. This is the people's choice. And this is on the assumption that the citizens are well informed, I will not use the word educated, or well informed to the level where they understand what the best choice is or what the best choice should be. So it means when you're selecting your leaders, you're choosing them based on several issues other than our issues of tribe or religion, but based on that they will deliver on what they are supposed to do for the common benefit of everybody. The next aspect, you cannot have credible elections until you have transparency in party financing. We just came out of elections 4 or 5 months ago. If you look at all the parties, and I'm not excluding any party, look at all the parties, nobody has really come out to tell us how they fund their campaigns. So the research shows that most of political party financing is from public sector corruption. It's monies taken from the public sector through contracts, through awards of licenses, or different things where they will now use those funds to finance elections. Now, the problem with that is if you do that, you have to sustain it. And to sustain it means it's continuous public sector corruption, taking of government funds to maintain political structures. So those funds are supposed to be for roads and hospitals. You find out now, instead of building roads and hospitals, they go into political sustainability. Excuse me. Into political structure sustainability. So that poses a problem. The third element of political accountability is imagine a scenario now where all our political leaders openly and proactively disclose their assets, where they will show that this is what I had before I went into office. This is what I have after I've left office, without really invoking the Freedom of Information Act or the media blowing the whistle or anything, just proactively disclosing what you have. Declaration, there's nothing to hide. Your salaries are already in the open. So these are the things, these three critical elements that I believe in Nigeria, if we have these three things, the other things will follow. Now, the next that is very important, assuming we have credible elections, assuming we do not have so much public money in party financing, and all public servants decide to disclose their assets and all their interests in business. The next thing we have to have is public sector management. Now, Nigeria's major source of revenue, yes, is oil, and the non-oil sector is growing. The agriculture, the mining industry, the media, the film industry, the music industry, they're all growing. But now we're talking about public sector expenditure because they tax the citizens. Now, if citizens are taxed and is not being properly implemented to build roads, build schools, provide services, good healthcare, provide security, you find out that the nation will suffer. And that is why you find out most of the quote and unquote richest people or the people we have, you find out they're mostly public servants. And the reason for that is because there is low level of accountability as well as low level of transparency. Every one of us in this class now, go back, if I can see 45 people in the class, ask anybody, what is the budget of your local government? You find out of those 40, 30 might not know. How much has been expended out of the budget? How much does your local government receive on a monthly basis? What is being used? Now, if we don't even know what our local governments, we are not interested, you find out, we will not even know what's going on at the state level. And the states are not really doing so well in terms of public sector accountability. Unfortunately, most people are looking at the federal level, to know what's going on at the federal level, what's going on in this ministry and so on. Meanwhile, 46% of the resources, cumulatively with the local government, about 52% of the resources are at the state government and at the local government level. And that is where the public sector non-accountability happens. At the federal level, the accountability is a bit high. It's moderate, it's okay. But down there, not much is happening there. The second element is taxes. Taxes is what citizens contribute. It's citizens' contribution to national development. So if you don't have an effective tax system, you're not going to have enough resources for the development. The third element that we see in countries like the US, in Europe, in Asia, where they're doing well, they have a highly competitive private sector, in the sense that the major business in the land is not government. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, that seems to be the case. It has been for a while. The major area where people make money is through government, not really through economic incentives and businessmen. Yes, we have the Dangotes that have done well, the Femi Otedolas, the Bua, and a lot of people, Ben Murray Bruce, that have done well in the private sector. But that is the private sector should be the driver of the economy because they're the ones that employ people. They're the ones that will recruit the number of people that need jobs. They are innovative, they are radical, they are bullish, so they are going to enter and create opportunities. Meanwhile, the public servant might just make some money, buy property, nobody in the house, and just keep it. And once you do that, you're not really creating wealth. And that's why you can see why we have such a high level of unemployment in the country. So another good element of good governance is to have competitive restructuring. This in the sense that for Nigeria's case, imagine a scenario where all states, 36 states now, will say, whatever you produce in your state, for example, rivers, all the oil you make in River State or Bayelsa, keep it. Pay tax to the center. But at that level, you manage your resources, people will be closer to their resources and they will tend to manage it better. The current structure we're having now is not working too well because the center federal government is too big and they can't manage as much, they just can't manage. Federal government will be building federal roads that are involved to some degree in education, that are involved in building houses when they don't have any land. So it's too big. But when you now delineate and push powers to the states, you are going to have competition, where the states will be competing with each other. It will be a healthy competition because everybody wants to do well. But everyone coming to the center is posing a problem for us in Nigeria. And of course, even the private sector, there must be transparency, because if there's no transparency, you find a conflict of interest. There could be connivance between the public sector and the private sector, and we'll start having, it will breed corruption and conflict of interest problems. The last element of good governance is the civil society. That is what the Electoral College is doing. That's what CJID, Center for Journalism, Innovation and Development, is doing. Excuse me, is to ensure they monitor that governance, that there's governance in the land, that the government are doing the right thing, the politicians are doing the right thing, the judges are doing the right thing. Everybody is, as much as possible, is doing the right thing. When they release names of ministers, you criticize. You criticize on the basis of, are they competent enough? Do they have the capacity? Do they have the character to do this thing, to execute the functions they were given? All these things. Freedom of information, yes, not even freedom of information. Let government to ensure that they proactively disclose information without invoking any Freedom of Information Act. Then inclusiveness, very important. Include everybody as much as possible. Once you're a Nigerian, whether the people living with disabilities, the women groups, the market groups, the religious groups, everybody should be included, because governance should actually be top to bottom approach. It comes from the bottom. People know what they want. The work of the leaders is to implement what the people say they want, not the other way around. Government will just wake up and say, oh, we've done ABC and we're just supposed to comply. That's not how it's supposed to be. So just in a nutshell, these are what the principles of good governance should be in a country like Nigeria that will now go and be one of the top nations in the world if we try as much as possible to implement this. Now we have implemented some of these things, of course, at some level, but we could do better, much better in every of the elements here. So now, what is corruption? I'll take the corruption is so many things. It's so many things. But usually when we're speaking in the context of public sector, the simple thing is corruption is the utilization of your public office to abuse it. It's the abuse of public office. Now, abuse is in so many ways. You take money, stealing, theft, asset misappropriation, nepotism, tribalism, religious bigotry. There are so many, they are all corruption. And these are the things that some of these elements I just mentioned are the things that are hampering our economic development, are weakening our democracy, because we have not achieved our full potential, mostly because of corruption. I've explained what the elements of good governance are or should be, and I will now explain how corruption is tampering with each element in the good governance framework. So in what the effects of corruption is wide. I'll go back to I'll now go back to this dimensions of good governance and be explaining what corruption does to each of these elements. Now, you look at credible elections now, and I'm not assuming anything. I'm just saying what I think could be. You have a situation, let's say the INEC does not do what it's supposed to do. It doesn't regulate the political parties properly. It doesn't audit the political parties. It doesn't check where they source their funds for elections. It does not conduct credible elections because of, let's say, corruption. Corruption in the sense that we're just assuming somebody has taken money, or somebody has some pecuniary interest, or some interest groups, or some political groups. What are you going to have? You are not going to have credible elections. The second element, INEC, is still the responsibility of INEC to ensure transparency in party financing. Now, when INEC does not do that, when the police do not do that, because the police still have a role, they don't do that and ensure that it's not public sector funds, money taken from government coffers are not checked, the Financial Intelligence Unit, they don't do all this work, the EFCC, the ICPC, on regarding asset declaration, the Code of Conduct Bureau, the Code of Conduct Tribunal, all these 6 agencies now I just mentioned do not perform their functions. There is no way they are going to have credible elections, transparency in party financing, and asset declaration. So you can see there's a lot of work to do. Now I've mentioned INEC, Code of Conduct Bureau, Code of Conduct Tribunal, EFCC, ICPC, and NFIU, and the Nigerian police, 7 institutions. If they don't do their work properly, there is no way you are going to have political accountability. On the lower side, if the citizens, for public sector management, if the citizens do not monitor the public sector at the federal level, at the state level, and at the local government, you don't monitor how public sector expenditure and management ensues, you are not going to have good governance. And everybody is supposed to monitor. It's not just for public sector management, it's the onus is more on the people, more on the citizens. It's not really the work of only the EFCC when it has already happened, the crime has already happened, somebody has reported. No, it's the work of the media and citizens and civil society to monitor this component. Now, the civil society participation. Now, where you don't have a robust civil society, strong strong media that will even expose these things, or if they themselves are susceptible to corruption, they collect money, and maybe favor one political party or favor others or interest groups, it means it's all abused. And you will not have a robust media that will expose what the governors and the government is supposed to do, both at the federal level and at the state level. Then, of course, when you now allow too many interests, you don't regulate the private sector, properly, it means you are going to start having problems in regulation. If, for example, now you look at the power sector, so many interest groups, because the regulators have not done their work, we cannot just have light in Nigeria. Every day there is problem, you privatize, a new problem emerges. Why? Because the people that are supposed to get the licenses maybe were not competent enough, but because they gave more money, they were considered. And once they are considered, they cannot deliver. Once you can't deliver, it fails. And once it fails, you don't have light. Before you know it, you're not having another round processes of engaging new consultants, engaging new companies. And this has happened in the aviation industry. We have not been able to have Nigerian Air. It happens in the power sector. It happens in the, well, not too much in the health sector, because not too much, but mostly in other elements of the private sector. You have this same cycle of problems, where because of corruption, we're not being able to have the best companies that would deliver what it's supposed to do in terms of economic development. So this is how corruption affects these elements of good governance I just spoke about. So I'll go back to just this. So this is just basically what I explained, how in totality it just hinders economic growth and development. And most of the insecurity we have now is as a result of corruption. Because if you think of all the arms, Nigeria currently has, if I'm correct, about 3 million small and light weapons. No, it's much more than that. I've forgotten the number, but let's assume it's 3 million. Now, for you, we don't produce these guns. To have 3 million small and light weapons means they came through the border. Who is at the border? You have the immigration, you have the customs, you have the police. How did you allow, in fact, let me even use a more simpler example. We said we have fuel subsidy. Now, Nigeria imports our fuel and we sell it lower price than our neighboring countries. Now, what has been reported by competent authorities to be smuggled out of Nigeria is approximately 400 trucks per day. 433,000 liter trucks, those big ones per day. Now, to smuggle such a truck, there is no way, if not for corruption, that the police will not see it, the immigration will not see it, the customs will not see it, the local government, nobody sees a whole 33,000 liter truck moving across 200 to 300 kilometers No checkpoint, nothing. Of course, we know there are checkpoints, but nothing happens. So now that is what corruption, and because we have refused to fight that corruption, now everybody is buying fuel at 600 naira per liter. And if we continue not to fight this corruption, we'll get to the point where we buy this fuel at 1,000 naira per liter. And the onus of fighting corruption is on everybody. Yes, it's the responsibility of government, no doubt, but it's the responsibility of everybody. Now, this is just one example under the fuel subsidy I'm talking about. It's the same thing you find in the aviation industry, education industry, the healthcare industry, everywhere, especially the service industries. The education and healthcare is very common. So these are just in a nutshell the effects of corruption, how it has affected our economy, and how it has affected our security. So let's not assume Nigeria has not been doing anything. What have we been doing to fight corruption? We have all the laws. When we go for assessment on our laws, we are doing very, very well. Nigeria is doing very well. We have the ICPC Act that looks at public sector corruption to ensure that public servants are doing the right thing. We have the EFCC Act to check economic and financial crimes, vandalization, white-collar crimes, the banks, the BDCs, that's the Bureau de Change, the ones changing money, the stockbrokers, all that is their work. Advanced fee fraud too. This is 419, where you pretend just fraudulent activities, general fraudulent activities, and this entails even people involved in marriage fraud. You tell somebody you're going to marry, the person is fraud, or even there's no financial benefit, is fraudulent. When there's even financial benefit, it's more fraudulent. Those that cybercrime, all these scams, they all fall under the AFF Act. Of course, the Money Laundering Prohibition Act, there's the newer one now. It's 2022, where you take money. Now, that's the most painful thing, is that most public sector corruption in Nigeria, the money is taken abroad. That's just the most painful thing. If the monies were left here, Nigeria would have been developed, really developed. Then you have the Code of Conduct Act. For me, this is the most important legislation to combat corruption in Nigeria, because one, is in the Constitution. Two, apart from being in the Constitution, two is really empowered by law to check the asset declaration forms of every public servant in Nigeria. But unfortunately, the place is dormant, nothing is being done there. Then the NATI Act is supposed to check our extractive industry, the oil, now all the things that are happening in Zamfara, now in Zamfara Axis, all about gold, mining, and all those illegal mining. There's an act that is supposed to check there, but nothing much is happening there. Then the Freedom of Information Act, where civil society like CJID, the Electoral College can demand for information. Well, Nigeria is relatively doing well, but they have a way they play around. They will not give you the right information, what they are not supposed to give you. The Fiscal Responsibility Act is supposed to check the excesses of federal government. One example that comes to mind is, it says the federal government cannot borrow more than 5% of its revenue of the preceding year, if I'm correct. And now in the last regime, Buhari's regime, they exceeded that by borrowing way more than, I think, 30 or 40%. And the National Assembly did nothing. The House of Representatives did nothing. The media made a little noise, but did nothing. The citizens did nothing. Now, because of violation of this simple act that we do not check, that 5%, Nigeria now has a debt of $113 billion that we and our children and our grandchildren are going to pay this debt, because nobody is going to forgive you any debt anymore. They happened in 2004, if I'm correct, but now I don't think everybody's tired of us. So because we did not conform to the Fiscal Responsibility Act now, we have ballooned our budget and went to a printing. We printed over 44 trillion naira in the last regime. So our cumulative total budget is $113 billion. That's a lot of money for a country that at the peak makes $20 billion a year from oil. And from the $20 billion, you're going to pay salaries, you're going to build infrastructure, you're going to do so many things. Where are you going to save to even be unable to pay the remaining? Then, of course, other laws, penal codes for the Federal Federation and Criminal Code. Penal code is the laws used in northern Nigeria, and the criminal code are the laws used in the southern Nigeria that deal with things that have to do with corruption, fraud, and related issues. So the recommendations how to come out of this problem is to improve our economy. We must have good governance. That's just those first elements I spoke about. And to have this good governance, we must get the first pillar right. And what's the first pillar right? Our politics. That's why I have to commend the work of the Electoral College, what they are doing. I hope they expand it to reach every citizen, including the politicians, the active politicians we have now. To reach out to everybody, we must get our politics right. Now, it's not going to be a one-day thing or a two-year thing. It's going to take time, but we need to all be involved in ensuring the best out of us come out and do what is right. And everybody should be involved. It should be everybody's business. So the second element, there's a need for improved citizens' engagement. The truth is we are quite we're too disengaged on what's going on, especially at the state level and the local government level. Those that make some noise, is that maybe those that are on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, and those things. But apart from that, most people are just disengaged. Are they tired? Probably, because it could be tiring, So, but people need to be involved, use technology, use social media to mobilize citizens to ensure that the best, candidates are those that are in public office. And it's not political office alone. In all other components of public office, people that are appointed, are they credible? Are they competent? Do they have the capacity to execute that job function? The third element is adoption of a collaborative approach, where you involve in knowledge sharing, like what we're doing now. We're sharing knowledge, we're collaborating, we're talking, so that there'll be more anti-corruption responses. But this element there's a lot of rivalry between anti-corruption institutions. So there needs to be one direction, how you do more of preventive measures. The preventive measures that helps is transparency. When you have a good transparency, it's a preventive measure, because Nigerians, we just don't listen. So we have to promote issues about transparency. That the more transparent we are, the less corrupt we will be. So basically, this is just a summary of what the recommendations I have. And in conclusion, I have to say that the problem of corruption is as old as society itself, and it crosses across everywhere. Races, classes of people, tribes. So let's not think it's a Nigerian problem, but we have identified the problem. What we're talking about is the solutions, and the solutions is for us to, the starting point, where in the Electoral College now is to ensure that we have credible elections with credible citizens, and we have transparency in party financing to ensure that the best people are the ones that are leading us. Thank you very much, Lisa.
All right, thank you so much, sir. Gotsin, are you there? So you could handle the questions.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much for that wonderful lecture. We're so grateful. So guys, if you have a question, you can just raise your hand up. Let's begin. Okay. And in case you find yourself in a place that is noisy, you can type your question on the chat. I'm going to read it from here, and then you get your answer. So let's go with Omoji. Please, I'm sorry if I murder your name. I've asked you to unmute.
All right. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening, my brother.
Please, you said about penal code and criminal law code. Why are they using two different laws in the same country? This is the first time I'm hearing that, sir. You say one is for the penal code is for North, the criminal code is for South. Why would they use two different laws for same nation?
Okay, that you have to go to our history. When before our independence, the North has elements of Islamic law. There are elements of family law. There's a lawyer on this class, he explained better. So the northern part of Nigeria wanted those elements to be incorporated. The issues of family law, the issues of inheritance law, which are different from the common law, which is the common law is the British man's law. But the Islamic system has a system of inheritance and of distribution. Yeah, that's inheritance, distribution of wealth after death. Then there's a system of marriage and all those things. So that is just basically the difference in those two laws. Nothing major. Are you with me?
Omo Jewe, does that answer your question, or do you still have some clarifications? All right. Okay, so we have a question here. He said, how do you distinguish between loving and bribing? That's from Yusuf Abakari.
Between what and what and bribing?
Between lobbying and bribing.
Lobbying in Nigerian context, they are all crimes in Nigerian context. In the US, there's a difference. It's allowed because they have regulation in terms of, okay, if the amount, let's say, I'm not sure, does not exceed, let's say $10,000. If it's for good cause, if it's for maybe the, the Congress and all those things, those elements. In Nigeria, we don't have those elements. Lobbying is not allowed. Completely is taken as bribery. The only thing you're allowed is advocacy. You can talk, you can lecture, you can do those things, but once there is element of cash or any material involved, it becomes a crime in Nigerian law. That's much as I know.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Abba Kerry, I hope that answers your question. Promise, your hand was up before. Promise Obudu. I'm not sure, but I think your hand was up before. Okay, guys, I expected you guys to fire the question back to back today because this is a very important topic, governance and corruption. There's a lot about corruption in Nigeria. And for me, I don't only see corruption from the standpoint of embezzlement, like our speaker said, but there's a lot of corruption happening in our system, even by us that are citizens. So I expect a lot of interactions. Gideon, I've asked you to meet. You can ask your question, Gideon.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Okay, so that was a nice presentation, brief and yet punchy. Corruption is really bedeviling political development and, of course, economic development and putting the masses at danger. And we cannot speak overly about this. Now, even we, the masses, who feel there's corruption are still corrupt. We are not honest, there's no integrity. And I mean, there's a whole lot that is bedeviling the development itself. Let me just take, for instance, the last general elections. A lot of youth were clamoring for a particular candidate, and all of that. But in my mind, I'd be like, even if we have that candidate become a leader today, it may not be easy for him to even govern us. Why? Because are we really going to stop being corrupt? Are we going to obey simple rules and regulations set there for us? So I think it's about mindset. And I want to believe that this college is doing everything possible to impact, so that we know that we need to improve on ourselves, so that when we get to that position, the language of if you cannot beat them, you should join them, would already have been erased from our mind. That being said, if you cannot beat them, you join them. How can we effectively be able to achieve this? Because the truth is that I work in the government, and a lot of shit. Sorry to use that, but
I can barely hear you.
So I mean, like, I work in the government and there are a lot of mess. So sometimes you're
Hello, Gideon, are you still there? We can't hear you again. Okay, I think Gideon was muted. But so while we're waiting for Gideon to be back, there's a question here that says, sir, now that the corruption has taken over all sectors, what can we do to eliminate it?
That's a very difficult question now, very difficult. But in my view, let's do two things. Two things in my view. One, let's I've seen, I don't know what Big Brother looks like, but I know America Got Talent. That show, that music show, there was one time I was passing the TV and I saw, if I'm correct, like 50 million people voting online. That's what I think I saw some people voting online. So my immediate thoughts is that why not have a system where there will be full electronic voting? So you see, when you do that, you have eliminated, in fact, when you have reduced INEC's budget, INEC will not need more than 2-3 billion to conduct elections. Instead of these 200 billion that they are spending to start with. And everybody will have the right to just go online, use your name, your BVN, your international passport, any identifier, just to vote your candidate. Simple. So you see, that will force, if a politician will not even need to campaign anymore, you just sell yourself, and if people like you, they vote for you. If they would fine. That's the first thing I can think of. Have a full electronic voting system. Online, not electronic. Because if you say electronic now, we're bringing beavers and all that. So a full, or maybe a mixture, a mixture of those voting systems. The second thing is to fully digitalize. Sorry, I like technology. To fully digitalize government operations. Now, when you fully digitalize it, you have removed the element of discretion, because it's that discretion that brings the corruption. So these are the two things I think if you do immediately, you get a drastic impact, and there are things that can be done easily within 3 to 6 months. There's nothing supersonic about it. That's my own response.
Right, thank you very much, sir. I hope that answered your question, right? So let's go to Olufumi. Olufumi, you can go ahead and ask a question.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you to the facilitator. What I have is really not much of a question, maybe more like a contribution, and I would want to pick up from where Gideon stopped talking, because you see, personally, I don't like playing lip service to certain things, and it is clear that when we talk about corruption, because particularly as a young person, people are quick to say, oh, the government is corrupt, the government is this. But in the little time I have spent in my leadership journey in leading different categories of people across all board, I dare say that some of the people, even in my generation, if we give them an opportunity and put them in certain offices, they'll be worse off. And I say that without apology. Now, when we talk about corruption, I think we should not also think about the fact that, oh, somebody's embezzling money. Something as simple as maybe you are supposed to be in charge of a scoring board, and because you know somebody, you feel that that person is connected to you in some way, or somebody tells you, oh, I heard you are one of those on the scoring board, blah, 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 help my brother, help my whatever, get in. That is corruption. So it's very important that, particularly for those of us on this call who are taking this course, because personally, I don't like to be idealistic. For me, I feel that this corruption is not going anywhere. It is going to be there, whether you like it or not. It's now for you as a young person to say, okay, in my own time, how do I want to deal with this matter of corruption in handling it in whatever way you want to handle it? So I would just say that, again, let's look at it across board. Not just about, oh, the government people. What about us as young people in your organizations, in the little roles that you handle? How are you able to handle matters without perverting justice, without trying to make things favor a particular side just because you have the authority, or just because now my person? You know, we have this, sometimes people have this mindset. You say the person is a thief, but you say now our brother, now our thief, and you try to cover up for such an individual. So in all, like I said, it's not really a question, it's just me a contribution. I would say that we need to start looking at ourselves firsthand and stop just pointing at the government, because I always say something. The people in government did not fall from the sky. They came from among us. And it means that even you, anybody on this call, in the next 5, 10, 15 years, could be somebody in government. And you could just be as corrupt if you are not fixing your today. So I just thought to say that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for me. That was very spot on, and I quite agree with you. Before I come to those that are at the end of, let's take this question on the chat. So we have a question. It says, what is your take on the comments of the former EFCC chairman, now National Security Advisor, who famously said, if you fight corruption, it fights back? From someone who was heading the anti-corruption agency, making a statement such as this.
Yeah, what is
Is it what it's fighting corruption? Is it what it's fighting corruption? That's the question. Thank you.
Well, if we don't fight corruption, just like climate change, it is going to wipe us out. It's as simple as that. The problem, like what Madam just said now, we think is a joke. Now, let me tell you just 5 things why, if you don't fight corruption, what's going to happen. One, you have a medical emergency and you go to hospital and nothing will happen because there are just no facilities. Because you refuse to fight corruption, people, your good doctors that you have trained with government money are leaving. So you're not going to be meaning that everybody will soon, very soon you not have doctors to take care of you. Because you refuse to fight corruption, you bought fuel today at 600 naira. You are paying, if you used to use 5,000 naira per month for light, you are probably paying, those of us in Abuja are paying through our noses, it's about 80,000 naira per month, because you refuse to fight corruption. Because you refuse to fight corruption, our children, you are now forced to take them to private schools where you are paying through your nose, because the public schools are dead. Because of corruption, I can speak for the next hour. So again, the problem is we do not understand how is the responsibility of everyone. The problem we have, which I don't have the answer, is that most people are waiting for their turn. That since there's nothing, okay, let me wait for my turn. Once my brother is there, or somebody from my village or my friend, the next thing, let me take it and cash out, which is why look at our economic condition now. They will give somebody an appointment. What do you see? Celebration. People are celebrating. You should be crying if you are given an appointment now, because of the nature of the problem on ground. But because we are not really thinking about solving problem, you give your brother, you should be crying if they give your brother a government appointment. I'm telling you, if it's to solve problem. But we celebrate to throw party. Why? It is my turn. It's my opportunity. It's access. It's my own time to access. So how we change that psyche, I don't know how I'm going to change that psyche. Everybody just will have to be objective. That's why I'm a believer of utilizing anywhere you see corruption or where there is a human factor. For me, see how technology can replace that human factor so that you eliminate that discretion. Because once there's discretion, we Nigerians will exploit, as human beings, will exploit that avenue for personal benefit. You say elections now is fully online. It's fully online. Even if we want to vote for, even sorry to use this word, a donkey, well, I voted for him. You go online, you make your choice. That's what happens in America's Got Talent, in Big Brother, and all those voting things. You vote your choice. So you have eliminated that. So that's just my own thing. Remove human discretion where you can as much as possible. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I also believe that corruption is systemic. So if we want to fight corruption, we have to make it impossible for people to be corrupt. Like we have to find a system that makes it that lessens corruption. But then it's a very long conversation, and I quite agree with you, sir. Promise, Obodo, you can just go straight to the point. Quite soon. Olufumi, we have other people. So let's take those people first. Promise.
Good evening. Thank you so much for this lecture. First, I want to say I have a question and a contribution. My contribution is that Nigerians are corrupt because there are no consequences. And we are also corrupt because we do not see, we are unable to comprehend the full impact of our actions now, our actions today on our tomorrow. People are unable to understand what accepting a cup of rice to vote in someone you don't like to be will translate to in the future for you and your children. That again is another point, illiteracy. So let's tackle these two. One, consequences for actions, then two, illiteracy. And when I mean illiteracy, I don't mean, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but your background is noisy. We can hear you, but your background is noisy. I don't know. It's a kind of affecting us, but we can hear you.
All right. And so when you have these two conditions in place, I think corruption will be reduced to the barest minimum. But if you're talking about eliminating corruption, that, in my opinion, is not possible because corruption will always be part of us. It's a human factor. Then my question is, how can we make people more accountable? How can we ensure that actions have immediate and direct consequences? How do we entrench rule of law? In one of your recommendations, you talked about creating an anti-corruption agency for each of the sectors. I'm sorry to disagree, so I don't think that will have any effect. We'll all come back to the same starting ground again. Instead of having multiple anti-corruption agencies, why not have one that fights across board? Then different units partitioned out to different sectors. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Promise. So are you responding to that question, or there's a question on the chat?
No, his is more of a comment, and that last thing he said, that's not what I meant by saying. What I meant was to have a coordinated approach instead of the fragmented approach we have now. And that slide is an old slide, so this needs to be updated. So we just need to have a more coordinated approach, but not to have a corruption agency for every sector. No, that's not true. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, sir. I love the conversations going on in the chat. Someone said corruption is now a citizen and a culture. That's very funny, but quite true. It's sad reality. The question here is, in addition, what is the role of governing bodies in prosecuting corrupt officials? As long as corrupt officials are let go and not prosecuted, does this foster and promote people to keep being corrupt as there are no consequences for corruption? What are your thoughts, sir?
There are consequences. Our problem is that of implementation. There is no law. We have in our laws about 220 categories of offenses. And for each of these offenses, we have the penalty. And most of them are dissuasive. They are quite dissuasive, but the problem is the implementation and the rule of law. Sometimes rule of law can be an impediment, because you have to go to court, you have to prove beyond reasonable doubt, and that proving beyond reasonable doubt is cumbersome. You have to spend money, so it's not easy. It's just not easy, but that is what democracy entails, because the rule of law does not want to jail any innocent person. So conviction is usually difficult. That is why I'm a fan of why not let's invest more on prevention. Let it just not happen, because it's not nice for it to happen and people will just be chasing people around, law enforcement chasing everybody around. I don't like that aspect. So that's just it. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, sir. There's a question here before I come to you, Abdullah. The question said, what should be the role of an ordinary citizen in combating corruption? I think Ulufumi tried to answer that question, but I don't know if you still have more things to add concerning that.
The role is everybody should stick to what his mother and father used to tell him when he was a child in primary school. Do not steal, do not lie, do not hate, those little things. Everybody, don't even look at any government law or any or text. Just stick to what your mother used to tell you. Do not steal, do not lie, do not take what's not yours. When you borrow your friend's toy, you come back, she will ask you, where did you get this from? She will slap you. Will you take it back? If you maintain those cardinal elements of your mother, of our mothers, I'm telling you, we'll be good and fine. So let's praise all our mothers. They did well. It's us that when we decided to grow up, we decided to be rascals, and decided not to be listening to them. So that's the way.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. The role of family values on societal development. So Olufumi, do you have a question or you have a suggestion? So maybe you can just keep it short and straight to the.
Thank you very much. I will keep it short. And I just wanted to respond to some things in the chat box. And someone said something like corruption has come to stay or corruption has become a culture. I dare say it is that mindset that has kept us where we are today in Nigeria. In countries like the US, UK, for example, there is corruption actually. But guess what? Because of the kind of system that operates, that demands accountability, is not something that is so flagrantly made public like the way it is in Nigeria. For example, recently, the chief executive officer of BP, British Petroleum, had to resign. Why? Because he didn't give disclosure on past relationship that he had with his colleagues, meaning relationship with people in his office. In Nigeria, if such a thing were to come out, he would even be very normal about it. I mean, it's like, what's there? He's a man. That's what we're trying to say. So even though we are saying that this corruption of a matter may never go away, but the system that we operate in Nigeria needs to be overhauled such that when such matters come out, the general populace will take it up to say that this is a problem. But our mindset generally seems to be like, we have accepted it, it's part and parcel of us. But that mindset is what we need to focus on. So as personal, as individuals, as citizens, it's something we need to start reprogramming ourselves to think this is not normal. This is actually not a normal system. And for it to change, it starts from us. So I think let me just stop there. Thank you very much.
Wow, that for me once again. Before, do you what's the point? Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, sir. Yeah, from what my sister said for me, and I think one thing we miss as we are talking about corruption, we forget about education. The first place of education is our family. That's the first social institution. The second is the church, and the third is the school. These are the primary places where we start learning. I think we always believe our children learn more from society. if we don't embed these things in our system, it will not work. Like the Japanese, they are more of culture than the I forgot the other part of it. They are more teaching their children of culture. In Japanese, about the first 4 years in Japanese education, what they teach their children is value, how to be yourself, how to be the best. Check their version, everything they produce, they are unique. So for the first 4 years, there's nothing like teaching a child what is noun, what is verb, what is English. They don't teach their children that. The first 4 years, they teach them practical, how to behave in the public, how to do things in the public. So that is what they instill in their children. That's why in Japanese, if somebody commit a crime, for the person to get honor, the person will commit suicide, the government will not even tell the person. If you look at COVID-19 period, the Japanese do not restrict their citizens. They just make laws and people abide. While in Nigeria, people are buying their way through. That's when people are making millions. And when the Japanese prime minister was interviewed, he said because Japanese culture is most superior to any other culture because they believe. I watched a documentary in Japanese that their generation are going down because even the women are thinking of how to build, not to marry. They are begging their women to marry. Now in Africa, we are more particular about our children being the best in school, but not the values we impart in them. And that is, we have this competing spirit in Africa, and that is very, very challenging. So what I want us to do in Africa, we should go and look at the Japanese, how they train their children. We should start teaching our children from the home. Those days while I was growing up, they used to teach us songs like I Know a Lot About My Country, Say No to Bribe, Say No to Corruption. I listen to those songs, and today, but these days now, what we teach our children to sing, even in schools, they are different. The things we put to them in schools are different. We are just looking at how they will do best. So we should use our churches, our religious centers as means to teach our children not to be corrupt. We should use our homes, our families. Those are the non-educational, formal educational sectors to teach them. Then we should use our schools to teach them. Then by the time they get into the system, the bigger world, they will refuse to. The truth is, what my sister said is just practical of most of us. While we are making jest of this, our elders, if you give some people chance, some of us chance, some people will be corrupt. That's the truth. We have seen as a student, we have seen when we voted somebody for faculty, the guy ate some crazy amount of money. And I met this guy say, what do you do? He said, you don't understand politics. This guy's getting begging. This was a student in the school. I imagine if this guy now becomes a politician outside, what will he do? So I think we should look on ourselves. We should look on ourselves and what we are imparting on our children. What are we teaching our children? Parents should take note of that. Even as we are teaching our children, what are we teaching them? It's very, very important. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Omojewe, and that's quite spot on. There are lots of interesting conversation going on here. I'm just going to read a few of them. Then there's one question that I wanted to end here. So fighting corruption starts with us as the citizens and common man doing that which is right and being firm with it irrespective of pressure and having a system that demands accountability and consequences for the contrary. So someone is asking, the question is, yes, how can the common man support the needed change? He's making effort to be the change, but the one leading him isn't changing. I think the answer is simple. Continue to do what is right. Forget about the one leading you. It starts from you. One day you get opportunity to be there, you can now be able to correct all these things that you want to correct. The corruption is common everywhere in the world, particularly in Africa. How can we eliminate in minimizing in public sector? What is causes of corruption? Is based on weak system, or can we say human-based ethical? I'm not sure what you're writing exactly, but I think the question is corruption based on a weak system, or can we say is a human problem, sir?
Yeah, it's actually based on a weak system. But we have to remember it's the humans that develop the system, which is why I keep emphasizing, let's push for where now we're 2023. Let's see how we can use technology to replace where human intervention. Like example, the last 3, 4, 5, 6 elections, we go and queue up, collect your ballot paper, you thumbprint, you put, and it's counted, you know, and you move. But now where you can vote online, or now with all this introduction of technology, it reduces corruption. That's just what I say. Now there are some things now. Imagine where before to even get a service. Let's assume now you want to board the train. And those of us you want to board the train, you can buy your ticket online. So that eliminates that aspect where the human intervention comes in, and that is what developed economies are doing. So that is I've been saying it. That is my view about solving most of our problems. Thank you. Somebody is saying figures can be manipulated. No, I disagree. It's manipulated when you want it to be manipulated. And Nigeria, we have about 23 banks now. Our daily transaction in Nigeria is in the hundreds of billions. The percentage of cyber crime on our daily transaction is less than 0%, 0.something%. So even if there's error, it's you can afford it. Let's assume it's even 5%. It means you have scored 95%. That is more than okay. So it's not easy to just say you just manipulate. No. If you harmonize our data, where you can harmonize our NIN, our BVN, our everything with international passport. Okay, anyway, you need international passport for foreign travel. But harmonize all our data where you can only use that unique identifier, like this Social Security in the US. Everybody has a unique number to vote. No, that I believe you cannot manipulate it. It's not. There's a lot of social media things. It's not easily manipulated. You can't manipulate it. That I can tell you. I'm not telling you it's not impossible, but it's just not as easy as it's easier said than done. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. I think we have one here. It said, being righteous in an unrighteous environment is very difficult. I'm trying to get the question. Okay, you say in China, in countries like China, they have punishment for stealing, rape-related cases, offenses, and etc. So we really have it in Nigeria. Only the common man is scapegoat, while the big guys is left safe. Reacts.
I didn't get that. Is that a question?
Yeah, it's a question. He wanted to react. He's trying to say that being righteous in an unrighteous environment is very, very difficult. Now, he cited instances with countries like China where there are punishment for stealing, rape, and all kinds of offenses. And he also said that, yeah, in Nigeria, we have this kind of punishment for these kind of offenses as well. But it is only the common man that is scapegoat, while the big guys, nothing happens to them. So he's trying to say, what is your take about that?
Better implementation, where the Nigerian Bar Association and they try. If you notice, like I said, the way we focus so much at the federal level, we're interested on who becomes president, who becomes minister. We have less interest on who are those at the head of the judiciary. We are not too interested in who becomes governor or local government chairman, and we do not understand the importance they play in ensuring good governance in the country. Now, right now, nobody really cares about the judiciary, honestly, and there are a lot of problems going on there, a lot of problems. Even us, the media and the civil society, how have we really done a lot of advocacy for judicial reforms? Not really. We have not. Everybody's looking at political reforms first. Yes, that's the starting point. I agree. But if you are taking this as bit by bit, you find out if you do judicial reforms, not the way I've been seeing some politicians or some supporters have been doing, that's not reform. Where you ensure, now one aspect of judicial reform now, imagine where you say, you do an advocacy that, since we're all obsessed with presidential system, where you cannot announce results until all the judicial processes are done within 30 days. meaning you cannot swear in somebody, you cannot swear in a candidate. That's an improvement. Imagine doing advocacy to say that all pre-election matters should end at the political party level. Not everything should go to the judiciary, which creates the incentive for the bribery we have not seen, we assume takes place, and all these things. So there are a lot of reforms that can happen within the judiciary. And even more importantly, where we don't even see, we're talking politics now because we're electoral college, where there are a lot of businessmen, a lot of businesses that are ruined because of poor judicial judgments. Somebody that has more contact, more connection will take somebody to court and ruin another person's business because he doesn't have contact or he doesn't have money. And that thing happens under commercial law most of the time, but we are more interested in politics. So there's a need for reform everywhere, including the civil society and media we're talking about. In the long run, it all boils down to the individual and willing to do what your mother used to tell you and your father used to tell you at the family level. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. And I think I'm reading the last conversation here.
Yes,
Say corruption. Corruption is basically an offshoot of deficiency in values and character. It's people that make the system. Everyone comes from a family. As simple as your mom instructing you to tell someone she's not around while at home is planting the seed of corruption. Whether politics or not, check your values and strength of your character. How low can you go? And of course, I quite agree. It all boils down to us personally. And probably for me, I think I share an example that is very closely related. The last election, the rec officer for my state was current vice chancellor of Futo, a woman, professor. At the point, there was pressure on her to compromise, to announce another person as the winner of the election. But the woman stood her ground and said, for a better part of her adult life, that she has spent it pursuing the ideals of truth, honesty, values, transparency, and accountability, that as for this election, the people's mandate must count. And she stood her ground. So imagine what that means. There's a lot of celebration in my state right now. A lot governors have started taking new shape, more than what we had in the last 24 years. And that's because one person decided not to be corrupt. And I was thinking, what if that one was not the rec? Another person could have announced someone else, they go to court and does it. So it boils down to you. It's not just about what the political officers are doing. Who do you want to be? What priorities and values define the things you do in life? You have to start by saying, I'm not going to be corrupt, because there are a lot of systems that want you to be corrupt every day, but then you have to make the decision. And that's why this course is here. It's not just for us to, engage in the conversations and at the end of the day we go back. No, we are having these conversations because we are a new generation that is coming up. We want to make a change, and you cannot say you want to make a change while you are still part of the same problems that brought us where we are. So the decision is about you. Forget about the other person. Make the decision yourself. Change starts with you. And if everybody makes that decision, I think one day we'll wake up and we'll find ourselves in a better society, far more than what we have today. So thank you so much, sir, for that wonderful conversation. Probably if you have any other question, maybe you can send it through his email, or you can reach out to some of our admins. They'll get to how you're going to get to him, to get some of your questions answered. So from here, I don't know, Lisa, if you have any announcements to make. Aside that, from here, it's good evening, everyone, and have a nice weekend, and see you guys tomorrow same time. Thank you so much, sir. We are so glad to have you.
Weekend.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry for joining late. It's weekend and there was a lot of distraction. Sorry.
Oh, no problem.
No
You were
problem,
quite
sir.
on time. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Yes. I think we can just allow the participants say thank you.
All right.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
So thank you. We are grateful. Thank you so much. It has been
Thank you so much.
impactful.